Punishment. I'm willing to bet that at one point or another, maybe many points throughout the course of our lives, we have all experienced punishment. A punishing consequence is any consequence that decreases the likelihood that a behavior is going to reoccur. So, either the presence of an aversive stimulus, which we'll get to in 1 second, or the removal of an appetitive stimulus, something that we like, results in the likelihood that we're not going to repeat the behavior that is being punished. This differs from negative reinforcement, although punishment and negative reinforcement are frequently confused. With punishment, you have an aversive stimulus, something someone doesn't like a speeding ticket, for example, being added, not removed. This is what negative reinforcement looks like, okay? So with negative reinforcement, first of all, just knowing the word reinforcement, we already know that any reinforcer, positive or negative, is going to increase or strengthen a behavior. All right? So the aversive stimulus occurs first. In this case, a loud noise, right? That's something that the rat doesn't like. The rat can press the lever and the stimulus, the aversive stimulus, is removed. The loud noise is removed, okay? So negative reinforcement strengthens a behavior because the response will remove the negative stimulus. Whereas with punishment, an aversive stimulus is applied to weaken a behavior. So in this case, there's no noise. A rat presses a lever and then a loud noise is applied. Is the rat going to press the lever again? It's very likely that they won't, unless they really like a loud noise for some reason. But I'm sure they're biologically disposed to not liking that loud noise. So with negative reinforcement, we have the strengthening of a behavior. The rat is going to keep pressing this lever in the future because they know it gets rid of the loud noise. Punishment, on the other hand, behavior is always going to be weakened. All right, the rat is not going to press the lever again in the future because they know that if they press it, the consequence is going to be a loud noise. So there are two types of punishment, just like we talked about, two types of reinforcement: positive punishment and negative punishment. And if you remember, we said positive doesn't mean good, it means added. Think about addition, think about a plus sign. All right. Positive punishment is the application or addition of an aversive stimulus after a behavior or a response. So, I'm no animal trainer. I don't know that you'd really want to do this, but I've known people to, and I don't know, maybe you do. I don't own cats. Spray their cat with a water bottle when they jump up on the table. That would be an example of a positive punishment. You're adding an aversive stimulus or something that the cat doesn't like as a consequence for their behavior, which is jumping up on the counter. A speeding ticket. An individual getting a speeding ticket should reduce the likelihood that they're going to speed again in the future. Now, the speeding ticket always gets to the conversation of, but you're giving up money, so isn't it really negative punishment because you're losing something you like? No, I've consulted my resident BCBA in my life, my sister Lauren, and she's reassured me that it's commonly accepted that a speeding ticket is an example of positive punishment. It's considered the addition of an aversive stimulus. Spanking, which the American Psychological Association very much is against, is also an example of positive punishment. Child exhibits a behavior, parent engages in spanking the child as a consequence. That's the application or the addition of an aversive stimulus. Negative punishment, on the other hand, again, negative meaning taking away or subtracting. It's the removal of an appetitive stimulus after a behavior or a response. So it's something that you like. Think about a time that you've had something taken away from you as a consequence of your behavior. Maybe it was your cell phone, maybe it was TV time, maybe when you were little it was your favorite toy. These are all examples of negative punishment. The undesirable behavior is exhibited. Let's say you talk back to your parents. That's your behavior. Consequence. Fine, I'm taking away your phone. Removal of an appetitive stimulus. Taking away something that you like. Hopefully, it would make it likely that you would not talk back to your parents again in the future. So, I've used a couple of these examples. A timeout is an example of a negative punishment because when you give a child a timeout, you are removing them from a situation that they would rather be in. Maybe you're not allowing them to socialize with their friends or their siblings, or you're not allowing them to watch TV or play with their toys. A timeout is considered negative punishment. So there are some problems with punishment, and it's why professionals prefer the route of positive reinforcement be used first. Like, in other words, make sure a person knows this is the behavior I want you to be exhibiting. Here's my expectation, and then reward whenever you see that behavior present. But in reality, anytime you're diminishing a behavior, you're punishing it. It's really like the positive punishment that I think a lot of professionals tend to be more opposed to. But anyway, some problems with punishment. Oftentimes, an undesirable behavior is going to reappear when the threat of punishment is removed. So think about having a sub come into the room, right? When your teacher's there, you know that threat of punishment might be greater than when you have a sub in the room. So as soon as the teacher's out for the day, you might have some students that start doing things that they shouldn't be doing. Think about if a teacher has a very punitive cell phone policy. Let's say every time they catch you on your cell phone, you lose X number of citizenship points. Is that positive or negative punishment, taking away citizenship points? It would be negative punishment, right? Because I'm taking away an appetitive stimulus, which is the citizenship points. We could get off on a whole other tangent about whether or not that's an effective practice, and whether or not kids find value in citizenship points. But maybe that's a conversation we can have in class. Anyway, what happens the second teacher turns their back? What do a lot of kids have the tendency to do? Pull out the cell phone and do the texting, or check the gram or Snapchat or whatever. So that's an example of how oftentimes those behaviors will reappear when the threat of punishment is removed. Other problems with punishment is that very punitive policies often can trigger negative feelings towards the punisher. It might keep kids from learning new and better responses, because if you're focusing only on punishment and not on showing them what is acceptable behavior and rewarding it or reinforcing it, you're not really doing them any good. And it's often applied unequally. We can talk about this in terms of race, and all of the studies that have been done, all the research out there on how Black students and students of color generally are punished by schools at disproportionate rates compared to white students. So there's actually a new movement towards what's called restorative justice programs in school that we can talk about during the course of our class, but they focus less on punitive measures and more towards the building of relationships and kind of the setting of good expectations for behavior. The other issue with punishment is, it needs to be continuous, not intermittent. If punishment only comes every once in a while, it's never going to stick and it's never going to work, because like we said, as soon as the threat of punishment is gone, the behavior is going to reemerge. So whereas with reinforcement, we learned that intermittent reinforcement is the best way to maintain a behavior. Only reinforcing sometimes. If you only punish sometimes, that's not going to effectively keep the undesirable behavior on extinction.